Hi, hello everybody. Welcome. My name is Jose Acevedo, and today's presentation we are going to talk about unmanned aircraft system or unmanned aerial system, better said, operation in national airspace. I hope you enjoy it, and this is going to take about 10 to 15 minutes. For our overview, we are going to have a brief introduction about the drones industry, and then legal and ethical foundations, technological integration on the drone industry, industry applications, regulatory challenges, and then we're going to come to a conclusion. So hang tight, and let's start diving into it. First, for the introduction, the aviation industry is rapidly developing around having drones overtake different roles where you will have a person execute certain task. So this have proven to be more economical. And when it comes to speaking about the ergonomics, companies really do like this. And not only just civilian companies, we can also see this in the military as well. And the reasoning for the military to utilizing this UAVs or UAS is for to remove the human off the enemy lines and to safeguard them instead of putting them in harm's way. We just send a computer essentially to go down close combat instead of having a human, which is the traditional method. But this being said, we need to be very careful, and we need to create, and by we I mean the aviation industry or the FAA needs to create, and so also local cities, local law enforcement need to create a structured regulation that will safeguard safety. Because if we do not create those parameters, we are going to see very often that people are going to continue to test, and not necessarily just test, but to just have fun, honestly, and explore, experiment with this new technology. And we might not know that we're doing something wrong until someone get hurt or we cause damage to property or things like that. So regulation need to be established, but it needs to be very subject to change and ready to change a moment's notice, because this is a very newly developed technology. And of course, UAS should not jeopardize our aviation safety. That's what we had to establish those parameters and create healthy boundaries, essentially, to make sure that operators, as well as people that are not partaking in any UAV or UAS operations, feel safe in the ground. I would like to apply a biblical worldview to every single one of my sections. Just gonna help with the transition and take a break and see where we coming from, or where I'm coming from, and my belief on every single one of the slides that I'm gonna present to you. That way, we can all see they all come from walking in a biblical worldview and what is printed in this scripture, right? Because that's our biggest law book is the Bible. And I picked Micah 6:8, where it says, act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly. Right? So we just need to make sure that we understand we're not perfect. And we need to make sure that we understand where people are coming from. Like I mentioned earlier, some people honestly might just be having fun, and they might be seen in a courtroom as a negligent individual, but they probably not meant any negligence by their actions. But we need to understand that we need to love mercy and then also walk humbly, because we do also make mistakes. Every single one of us make mistakes. None of us are perfect. Now, for the legal and ethical foundations, We need to understand, as we're reading in our books, we need to understand the law safeguards human safety and promotes justice. So essentially, everything that's written down, there are uh, moral beliefs that are in a specific society that safeguard them from outside harm or from harm from within. So, for example, a person flying a drone at a proximity of another person, and that person not knowing what are the intentions of that drone operator, can make them uneasy. And to avoid those things, we need to create those boundaries, those healthy boundaries within the law to make sure that both the operator can peacefully operate his drone, as well as the person that is not partaking, like, oh, okay, I see a drone, but I do know the local law enforcement um, are aware of this. We might have some like remote ID where we can see who's operating it, and I also have some education, right, which we'll talk very briefly later on in the slides. And then moving on into further on into that topic, we need to understand that our local population, not just the operators, need to understand what does it mean by safeguarding human privacy rights. Right? So local spaces, private areas, as in like your home. You don't want a drone just staying steady in your backyard, or staying steady hovering over your vehicle. That's what there are rules over those. To operate over people, right? You are over persons. You can't do those things unless those individuals are part of the operation that drone is taking place in. So we need to understand that some of the companies that are implementing the usage of drones might seem like they're being malicious, but they're not being malicious. They're just trying to remove the human, like I mentioned before, and add now a computer or an aerial vehicle or system that can replace the human. And we can see this, for example, to make it easier for you guys, the audience, to understand, as Amazon, for example, right? An Amazon drone comes over into your backyard and just hovers there for a little bit, might have some difficulties. They're not spying, right? At least that's what we're being told. They're not spying. The drone is just trying to find the proper location, the proper landing zone or drop zone in this case, and then once the package is dropped, the drone goes in his way, right? So that's one example. I know I'm gonna be in a lot of big words. Sorry, I'm trying to look professional. I'm not professional at all. But in simple words, that's what I'm referring to. Now, for the biblical worldview, we need to make sure that we are slow to judge. Don't judge immediately. We all are very familiar with the saying of "Don't judge a book by its cover," right? So don't think because there is an unidentified object that is hovering near the area that you're in that you are automatically a target. If those things happen, we have local law enforcement that can take care of those things. Don't take matters in your own hands. So be slow to judge. Slow to judge, very important. For industry applications, sorry I cut it off a little bit with my face, but we can see this everywhere, and all of you are very familiar with these things, where we have seen implementation. Military have an enormous implementation of drone usage. They have like the Wingman. They have drones like the the NQ9. I believe it's the RQ4. They have all different types of drones that are designed for a specific mission, either if it's reconnaissance or delivering a payload, whatever the case may be, or even now in the new developments is fighting side by side with our fighter pilots. So it's pretty cool to see. In the agricultural as well, we can see some of the applications to remove, since it's a very dangerous game to fly a crop duster. Now we have drones that can fulfill that, no problem. For public health, we have fumigation services. And just to throw a little bit when it comes to the public health, it might not be 100% with, but in the military, we're also adopting where we can send a drone out to scout an area that have been attacked with chemical agents or anything of that sort, instead of sending individuals that might have a tear in their suit and now we just lost a member because a small mistake. Losing a machine versus losing a life that is irreplaceable is a huge change and a huge step in the right direction. As well for disasters, right? Fires, flooding. That way we can identify where that might be people that might need some help, and we go out there and scout the area, get eyes on the floor, and then we can send the teams with the equipment that they need instead of sending a team that is not ready and like, oh, I gotta go back, I require this or this. It takes longer, so it not also remove or slow down. I'm sorry, don't remove the human from harm's way, but also streamlines the process and better equipped or responders to be able to respond accurately in a more streamlined manner. And for the biblical worldview in this one, I picked Proverbs 2:6, which tells us the Lord gives us the wisdom. All right, so we can look to the left, we look to the right, and I get it. A lot of people are like, we're keeping up with the Jonases, but this is not what it is about. This is about technological advancement, and it's not necessarily a negative thing. Technological advancement can benefit humanity. We just need to make sure we seek guidance from the Lord to know how to properly apply this technology and not just stick to the rock era and just the paper. Now everything is electronically. Now the technology is out there, computers, everything is computerized, everything is digitalized. So let's just continue on moving forward with technological advancements, excuse me, but let's seek guidance from the Lord when we do so. And now for regulatory challenges, we have, as I mentioned before, we have remote ID and then operating over person rules. That's what OOP stands for, which it's just pretty much says that if that person is not part of the operation, the UAS or UAV are not allowed to fly over those individuals, right? But if I am a visual observer and my friend is flying a drone and he flies over me, that is A-okay because I am part of that operation. So let's be cognizant of that. Even if you're crossing the road, right? There is vehicles. Let's say you're not crossing the road, that the drone is crossing an intersection or a road or a highway. Make sure that there's no vehicles or pedestrians in the area. Once they're cleared, then you can go ahead and cross over. There's little details that can get a lot of people in trouble very quick, very fast. And then remote ID just to help local law enforcement to be able to identify, or even the general public identify who's flying a drone and what is their intentions. The ICAO and Chicago Convention is in our reading material, and it provides a lot of the guidance that will govern the regulations for flying drones, and not just flying drones, but all the regulation in the national airspace more specifically. And then there is a reading in my research paper that I included that was great, where there was a Florida case study where they were going back and forth, experimenting and explaining the importance of make sure we're keeping a balance between innovation and security, right? Because some of these drones are getting so smart that we need to make sure that we don't give in too much power and we're not trying to continue to invade or not, well, yes, let's say continue to invade privacy of our humans, right? And we need to harmonize our incident reporting, right? So let's not go and try to take matters in our own hands. We have local policies, local regulations. We have the FAA, local law enforcement. They can help us. You can identify and report it, but please don't throw rocks at a drone just because you don't know what their intentions of they are. What if they're what if they're in a rescue mission, right? You don't know what might be happening in the fence next door. Even if you're in your neighborhood, you don't know what's going on in your neighbor's house, right? Even if you do, you don't know if they're I don't know, I'm just going to go extreme. If they're fugitive, right? And local law enforcement find them, and that's a local law enforcement drone or UAV. So let's not take matters in our own hands. Identify it and report it to the local law enforcement. They can take matters in their own hands because you can be held liable. It is a criminal act to damage a aircraft. These UAVs, UAS are considered aircraft, and they're protected under federal regulation. As to for the biblical worldview, do you remember that beautiful verse in John 13, 34, and 35? Beautiful how where it says, love one another as I love you. So pretty much make sure you understand that if God loved us, why can't we love one another? We are not perfect. We're in this world in an imperfect form. So please don't judge, don't point fingers. This will help you understand and act. Right? It might seem like this verse might not connect with what I've been discussing, but it does, right? Because it helps you slow down. It goes hand in hand with the last one that I shared with you of be slow to judge. It's the very same principle. Just understand that we should love one another and not point fingers right away when we see something that we do not like and make us uncomfortable. And in conclusion, law enforcement should be very involved in these technological advancements to make sure that there's justice. If we don't have law involvement, we can allow these companies that are developing these UAVs and UASs to advance very rapidly with no control to the point where they can be automated to a certain level that it can be detrimental to society. And then let's make sure that we collaborate among stakeholders because it's very essential that every party that is involved has a say, not just the voice of the people, but also everybody that's part of it, the investors, the engineers, everybody that's part of it. And then make sure that we balance innovation with public safety. That way we can all be held accountable and nobody is being treated unjustly. And then the last biblical worldview: seek justice, defend the oppressed. For review, we talk a brief introduction about drones, legal and ethical